Fran Chance is the founder of Reel Recordings, a bespoke commercial voiceover reel production service.
Fran worked as a voiceover agent with top agencies such as Excellent Talent, Sue Terry Voices and Shepherd Management.
An outstanding voice reel is vital to finding representation and professional VO work.
An often misunderstood medium, it was great to talk and get advice from one of the very best in the voiceover industry.
Hello, Fran.
Hello!
Hello, thank you so much for offering to spend some time with us this evening and impart all your knowledge that we're just gonna absorb like a giant sponge.
You are very welcome. Very welcome.
Fantastic. So today on The Essentials, we're going to be talking to you, Fran, about voice reels. So what are voice reels? What goes into a voice reel? Why you should get them? How Fran's business goes about recording them? And just a bit about the voiceover industry in general. So let's get straight to it. Can you give us a sort of dictionary definition of what is a voice reel?
Do you know, that's a really interesting question, because when anyone not in the industry asks what I do and I say, I make voice reels, they look at me with a very confused expression. So a voice reel effectively is an example of the sort of voiceovers you want to do. It's a bit like the audio version of a self-tape. So it's an example of, here's me reading this commercial, here's me reading this documentary, here's me reading an extract of an audiobook. So instead of sending forward a CV of jobs you've done, or instead of doing a self-tape, you send your voice reel.
Fantastic. Yeah. Whack that in the book.
Yeah.
What are the differences between like a commercial reel, which I know is more what Reel Recordings does, and a drama reel?
Yeah, so actually I think this is a really good question, because I think there is the difference also has to do with, I think there is some confusion sometimes from actors who haven't ever worked in voiceover before, understanding why a drama reel isn't hugely useful to a voiceover agent. And that is because radio drama and audio drama is almost always booked by an acting agent. Everything else, audiobook, promos, radio commercials, video games, animation, is booked by a voiceover agent. So whilst going and having, recording a Shakespeare monologue, an extract from this play or that play, or an audio scene from a TV show is great, it's not what a voiceover agent is going to be looking for. If you're emailing out to get representation, you may want to send that as an add-on, but that isn't what they're looking to listen to. And that is because it's not an area of the industry that a voiceover agent will book. I think that sometimes confuses a lot of actors, and so often actors get in touch and say, I want to do radio drama. It's like, that's brilliant, but I deal with specifically what we would call commercial voiceover. And again, slightly confusing, because I think people think, that means commercials, but it means pretty much any area of voiceover that isn't radio drama.
Okay, that makes complete sense, actually. Is VO is it like a closed shop more so than film and television? Because I know in film and TV it seems to be the same a lot of the time. A lot of the same people get cast over and over again.
I don't think it is, and the reason for that is it's budgets. If I'm making a commercial, Idris Elba is probably going to be top of my list for voiceovers, but the chances of me being able to afford him are slim. So that's what opens up voiceover to lots of different types of voices. And also, I think a really interesting move in the industry is that more so than ever, we don't hear just one type of voice. We're not hearing white, middle-aged RP man anymore. That used to be, the sound on our radios, the sound on our
BBC radio broadcaster type thing.
Absolutely. Or we then moved into a sort of place where you'd hear female voices if it was a Pampers commercial, or if it was anything to do with being a mum, and documentary series about history and science and nature were never narrated by women. That's completely changed. Completely. We could still go further. So I think because we're open to hearing more voices and we want to hear more voices, that's opened the work up. Actors all ask me all the time, is it really hard to get into? I would say it's as hard to get into as acting. You know, it's
Hmm.
difficult to get a good acting agent. It's difficult to get a good voiceover agent. It's easier to book voiceover work. It's easier to book acting work if you have an agent. It's easier to book voiceover work if you have an agent. But lots of actors book regular voiceover work without one. You know, lots of actors hustle and get their reels out there and, you know, get in touch with producers, get in touch with production companies. So I don't think it's any more difficult than TV. I think it's one of those things where I say this to anyone who's good and anyone who records a reel and thinks, yeah, I know I could do that. Keep going, because you will eventually get there. I honestly believe that, and I try and be as honest as possible with people when we're working. If you're good enough and you keep going, I'm going off on a tangent, but I think another great thing about voiceover is that agents don't really care about your voiceover credits. If you send your reel to an agency and they listen and think, God, we love that voice, they couldn't care less if you've recorded 20 commercials or you've never recorded anything before. Genuinely, it doesn't matter. I think that's quite refreshing, because so much of the acting world is, you know, more credits, and or how do I get more credits? But with voiceover, it genuinely doesn't matter. If you've got a great reel and an agent likes the sound, they'll get you in for a meeting.
Yeah. Oh, those are some really nice reasons as to, you know, why it's not as closed a shop as maybe some people believe, and reasons to get a voice reel. Is it a bit like a show reel in the sense of you probably need one to work professionally in voiceover, or at least definitely get considered by a VO agent?
You know, it's more important. You cannot book voiceover work without a voice reel. And the reason for that is because you don't, for the majority of work, I'll go into this in a bit more detail, but for the majority of work, you don't audition. So it's more important than a show reel. You know, you could get seen for a TV job without one. You won't book a commercial, a voiceover commercial, if you don't have a voice reel. So it's vital. And again, I think that's another thing where actors go, oh, do I need a voice reel to do voiceovers? Absolutely. And I'm not just saying that because I make them. You know, I used to be an agent, and there's no way you could get someone work without one unless they're incredibly well known and everybody knows their voice. But that's not the case for most people.
It's a bit like the pressure that you get when you hire someone for a big part in a TV show. You need to know that they can turn up and do their stuff, because a lot of time and money a lot of money has gone into buying the time in these expensive voiceover studios with engineers that,
absolutely,
you know, with their talents and things.
But also, you're not auditioning. So I could put you forward for a voiceover. The producer listens and goes, yeah, book the job. That's how they get cast. So you couldn't be put forward without one.
Yeah, Matt, I remember you got your reel done, didn't you? And then you got a job almost immediately from that with no previous credits in voiceover.
Yeah, it was like really nice emails to get. I remember pinging out my reel based on what Fran told me to put in emails, and I got signed. And then I remember in like about 6 weeks after that, I did a big VA job for EE, and it was my first one, and it was a really lovely experience.
The dream, isn't it, that when that happens? That's the dream. That is the best thing. Sometimes it takes ages. It can take actors a year to get signed, 18 months to get signed. But when you record with someone, they sign really quickly, and then you get a message saying, I've just booked this massive job. That is the best feeling. And I think that's what, you will know this, Matt. Voiceover is really immediate.
Yeah.
I think that can be frustrating for actors, is auditions, second rounds, recalls, then have to do wardrobe. And it can be a really long time, even if you book the job from hearing about it to going in. Sorry, I'm just going to shut that, guys. Hear that pinging in the background.
Go for it.
That's actors asking me, can I have a voice reel? So I'm going to turn that right off.
Please help me, please.
Yeah, indeed. But voiceover is immediate. You can be put up for a job and be going in for the job on the same day. It's lovely.
It's a really nice thing because, you obviously you get the radio commercials as well. And, a lot of actors pay their rent for a year by doing one TV and film commercial. But then it's always the thing with that is, can you compromise your dignity sometimes to do that McDonald's commercial, to do that whatever commercial? Whereas with VO, it's just your voice. You can get away with it quite a bit. So do you think like voiceover is quite an overlooked part of the industry at the moment? Are people like missing how, important it could be in their career?
That's an interesting question. I don't think it's overlooked, but I think maybe it's not understood. I don't think I think often actors don't know much about it. They don't know how it works. They don't know how much you get paid. And why would you? It's very, very different from the acting side. The way you book jobs, the way you bill, the way you get repeats, everything works in quite a different way. So I don't think it's overlooked. I think it's probably misunderstood. And more so than ever at the moment with what's going on. God, I don't really want to talk about it, but it's difficult not to come
the
up.
C word.
I know, I'm not going to say
Either
the
C word.
Yes, but it's voiceover has carried on. I wouldn't say completely unscathed, but you can record a radio ad from anywhere. You can voice a video game from anywhere. From anywhere. You have to have a mic set up and be in a quiet room, and have some sort of basic microphone set up. But the voiceover industry has done quite well during this. Speaking to lots of agents, it didn't stop, which is what they thought would happen. Everything would stop. It carried on, and in fact, certain areas have boomed. So I'd say more so than ever, it would be silly not to inquire and not to sort of question, okay, can I do this? Because it's one of the only areas that's thriving.
Yeah, it's amazing, really, how flexible you can be, and it's good to hear that it survived through the C word.
Yeah, and things like audiobooks. More people are listening to audiobooks than ever because people are at home and they have more time. People have the radio on at home, so radio advertising is, a big draw for agencies at the moment. There's lots of ways that not benefited from it, but that it's opened new areas for people. People who said they never had time to listen to an audiobook suddenly do.
Yeah, with all that work available now, how lucrative can VO be? Because like you mentioned a minute ago, actors I don't think quite understand how lucrative it can be in terms of financial.
Do you know what? This is a very interesting point, because I have to sort of tread carefully. There is no denying that voiceover can be exceptionally lucrative, and you can go in and work for an hour and make, a huge chunk of money. But it can be really sporadic, and it can be completely random. You have a year of just non-stop voiceovers, and then the following year you don't book much, and no one quite knows why. Things go in and out of fashion. Voices go in and out of fashion. Sometimes it's just luck. You can go and record a radio ad and your usage can be £50. If it goes on one station, that's all you're getting for your usage. It could be £4,000. So whilst there will be lots of actors out there that will tell you voiceover has changed their life and changed the way they work. If you have regular money coming in, or not even regular money, but if you have nice amounts of money throughout the year from voiceover, it allows you to make more interesting choices with what acting work you take on. If there's a job that you would rather not do, but you have to for the money, if you've just got paid a couple of grand from a voiceover, maybe you don't have to take that job.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always work like that. And unfortunately, there are lots of websites out at the moment where you can upload your reel and people will pay you £10 to record a voiceover, which is just infuriating, because actors work really hard to do what they do and deserve to be paid correctly.
Yeah.
And also all that does is it drives the rates down for everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. Because if it provides a market competitor, doesn't it? It's like when you see all those adverts put on Twitter by these huge businesses being like, we're looking for specifically not actors that we can pay 50 quid or something. And like, I get it, because some people don't understand how much work goes into the craft, and some people are like, oh, those actors get
It's
angry.
insulting though. It's actually insulting. And you sometimes, when I was an agent, you'd have people say, oh yeah, but it'll be really good experience for them. It'll be, this ad's going to go on everywhere. Loads of people will hear them. Yeah, that's why you should pay them
Yeah.
properly.
All the more reason to get the money they're due. Yeah.
So pay them, they're a really important part of this finished product. They are, so pay them properly. So rates aren't what they used to be. Voiceovers, well, you could do a voiceover and it'd be life-changing. We're not at that stage anymore, but voiceover can make you very comfortable.
Yeah, it's very interesting what you said about taking the pressure off and the choices, the parts that you go for as an actor. But also, I think just struck me as when you go in the room and you haven't got the pressure to need the money, you need that job, then you just tend to perform better anyway.
Of course you do. And you know what? That's why a few actors before have said, oh, I need to speak to my acting agent about getting voiceover rep. I don't know what they're going to say. And I think, well, most acting agents I have worked with in the past, unless they have a voiceover department themselves, which most don't, really encourage it, because if your client is making money and is secure and is not, it can be really hard being an actor. And if they're not worrying about whether they can pay their next bill, they're in a better headspace, they work better, they audition better. And also they tend not to be calling you every 5 seconds, checking when they're going to get an audition because they just did a lovely video game voiceover. So it benefits everybody.
Yeah, and then they can use, because the credits will go on, if you so choose to, will go on your spotlight that's got both your agents listed. So it's, everyone benefits from that. And you're talking, we're talking about not having the pressure of going in and recording. What tips do you have for someone coming to record a reel with you, or maybe someone that's going to record their first voiceover job? Because as you say, it can be very immediate, and they don't know if you've done 50 adverts before based on your reel sometimes. So do you have any sort of,
I
you should always do this?
I have loads of tips, actually. We'll start with
Brilliant.
for the voice reel. So I am surprised how many actors will want to record a voice reel. I really want to do voiceovers. Great. Do you listen to many commercials? No, I never listen to commercials. I'm like, okay. That would be the equivalent of wanting to be an actor and never having been to the theatre, watched a film, watched a TV show. If it's something you are serious about, engage with it. Turn on commercial radio, even if it's only half an hour a day, and listen to ads. When you're watching a documentary series, listen to the narrator. Download audiobooks. Again, so many actors, I really want to do audiobooks. Do you listen to them? No, I never have. Start listening.
It's often like, do you even read?
Nope.
No.
Engage. And I sort of understand it, because the nature of really good voiceover is that often you don't really notice it. A good narrator on a documentary sort of gets forgotten about. You're hearing it, but you're not focusing on it. Do the opposite. Focus. Listen to voiceovers. Listen to voiceovers on commercials. We all bloody watch Netflix now, so we don't see them anymore. But try and watch, put on Bake Off, and don't fast forward the ad breaks. Also, a really easy way to listen to lots of voiceover content is to go onto good voiceover agency websites. Listen to actors that sound like you. It's a really simple way to sort of target your ear to commercials that are relevant to you, but also just listen to good voiceovers. Listen to Mark Strong on Another Tongue's website. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that in terms of voiceover. So engage as much as you possibly can. Going into your first voiceover job, there are many things to bear in mind. One is, again, not many actors know this, so I think it's worth saying now, you rarely get your scripts beforehand. Matt, you will know this. Often it's you turn up, you get handed a script, which freaks some people out. But
often with words you've never heard of in your entire life, and you have to say like they're, you say them every day.
Yeah. Like it's the most casual thing ever. But what comes with that is that everybody there knows you have only just got that script. Everybody's aware of that. So if there's a really long, maybe possibly made up scientific word about, this particular yogurt brand, they're aware that you will never have said that before. So if it takes you 3, 4, 5, 6 takes to just get your mouth around it, that's okay. Also, another thing to remember, particularly on commercials, is that everybody in the room is feeling pressure, not just you. The engineer wants to do a good job. Whoever's directing it, probably the director, but the director of the ad may not be there. Whoever's running the session wants to look like they know what they're doing. The end client really, really wants this to go well. So whilst you're sat in your goldfish bowl, and you can feel an immense sense of pressure. Every single person, believe me, sat there is going, I hope I do a good job. I hope I do a good job. If you focus on that, it takes so much of the pressure off of you. And also another big thing, it's a recorded medium. So if you F it up, they'll just do another take. If you F it up again, they'll just do another take. So take your time. And sorry, I could go on about this forever, but when you get handed that script, if you've not seen it before, just say, can I just have 2 minutes to just read this to myself? Yeah, no problem. That'll give them time to order a coffee, faff about a bit. You then get 2 minutes to yourself. Take that 2 minutes. You know, once you're then recording, be in the moment and be engaged. But I think it's really important to just take that at the beginning for yourself.
Yeah, I remember midway through that first voiceover job, I just took the pressure off myself because I realised it had to get approved by about 3 different people that weren't there.
Or even
like
more.
the engineer and then the
yeah.
representative from the company and then the representative above them, and they'd say something about, oh, we want a bit more of this and a bit like you're probably in terms of that type of job, you're never going to get it right first time anyway, because you've got to please about 4 people at once.
But and also Matt, there's no right, because you can do a read and the producer goes, oh, we bloody love that, amazing, we're going to play it to the end client. No, that's not what we had in mind.
They hated it.
So the producer absolutely loves it. The engineer loves it. The end client doesn't like it. You know, so it's so collaborative, and I think it if you can look at it and feel like this is all on me, it's not. It's a huge collaboration, and sometimes the people in the room don't quite know what they want until they hear it. So it's about moving you around until they hear the sound and go, oh, okay, that's great. That, you know, that's slightly different from on an audiobook where you don't have the luxury of doing 50 takes. It would take you 2 months to record an audiobook. So that's slightly different. But anything, you know, video games, you get fantastic direction on video games. Again, it's not down to you. There's somebody there helping you. So I think thinking of it as a collaboration, like you would any other form of acting, is really useful.
There's some really amazing tips there. Fran, having been an agent for years, what are VO agents looking for specifically? Is it just a tonality thing, or?
Do you know what? I'll talk about this a bit. Yakety Yak did an amazing live during lockdown, and it's saved on their Instagram, I think, and they talk about what they're looking for in voices on that. So I'd recommend anybody to go onto Yakety Yak's Instagram and have a look. But it can vary from agency to agency. It can also vary from day to day in terms of specifically what type of voice they're looking for. So when actors like, I don't know if they need my voice. Well, they might not need your voice on a Monday, but by Friday they might realise that they had loads of briefs and they don't have anyone to fill them. So they suddenly are looking for different types of voices. But in terms of when you're mailing them, I think it's really good to be clear on what you have to offer. Another quite common thing that I experience is actors saying, oh, I just do everything. I do everything. The thing is, you are not going to get booked for every type of voiceover. And actually presenting an agent, if your niche is quirky, characterful, playful, silly, go with that. Present that to an agent. Now, of course, we want range in there. But, you know, the sort of voice that's right for that type of read is probably not the sort of voice that's going to book a BMW commercial. And that's okay. So I think having a clear sense of you and your voice, presenting that to an agency and saying, this is who I am, and then having a reel that is really high quality and gives examples of the sort of work you would actually book. That's important.
Having that clear image of who you are and what you intend to do.
Yeah, and of course, you know, I think that's really limiting. But if you're a smooth, husky, sexy RP voice and saying, oh, I'm you know, salt of the earth, you know, guy next door. No, that's not what your voice is, but that's all right. So find material that shows off your strengths and present to an agent what you do have to offer. Be the best version of yourself rather than trying to be a bit of a jack of all trades.
Yeah. With all that said then, what's the best way to go about contacting a VO agent? Do you think you should get the recording first and then send Yeah.
Yes. So sometimes agencies will see an actor in a show or see them on TV and then contact them and say, we'd love to represent you. When that happens, often then the agency will come to me and say, we've just signed whoever, can you record a voice reel for them? But more often than not, they sign actors because they email in with a voice reel. They listen and think, yep, we've got space for that voice. God, that voice is great. That voice is interesting, whatever. And then they sign them. So you're either going to be in something fantastic and they're going to spot you and sign you. But more often than not, it's going to be emailing in, here's what I can do. They listen, they have a meeting with you.
Yeah. So by a lot of people, we're, as actors, you're told, do stuff at home. If you can do voice warm-ups at home, do voice warm-ups, read plays, do all this sort of work, watch dramas from a genuine actor's point of view. So in terms of VO work, without having to buy a home studio that costs hundreds of pounds and then, insulating your room so you can't hear anything, what can you do to practice for this voiceover work or
to practice you
in
can
general?
do loads. I mean, we've all got microphones on our phones, voice note. My God, I spend my life voice noting. That is all you need. Listening is huge. Listening is such a big part of it. I recorded with an audiobook producer and she came in and recorded a voice reel and was absolutely brilliant. I couldn't believe she'd never done voiceovers before. And I said to her, how do you just get it? And she said, because I listen to so much audio content, I think I've just heard what it's meant to be and I'm just effectively doing what I think it's meant to be, which is slightly simplifying it, but don't ever underestimate how much just listening helps. If you're on a voiceover agency website and you're listening to something on there, a documentary extract, and you think, yeah, I could narrate that, type it up. Then get your phone, press your voice note, and record, and then listen back. If you're reading that section and it's taking you 25 seconds and the section on the website is 40 seconds, you're way too quick. You'll start to hear where you've lost energy at the end of lines, or you're losing clarity, or the VO on the website might have loads of lovely flow. Yours might be slightly staccato. You can then start to compare and contrast. Sounds like you're mimicking, but it's a really good way of finding out if you're in the right area. Type up scripts, record them, listen back. Do totally, it a lot.
Exactly. Like when you actually get it down to recording, it's amazing that sometimes on stage and even on screen, you're not as aware of all the minutiae of your voice. But when you're in front of a microphone and then you get playback and you hear your voice back, you hear every tiny little thing that could be improved or flipped. And
it's very exposing, actually.
Yeah.
It's very exposing.
Yeah, like you've spoken a bit about getting to know probably getting to know your casting, and your voice might be good for this or good for that, and it especially in that initial contacting stage. Do you think it gets a bit more open as you get known, or do you get like known for your voice, or does the casting ever open up?
The casting does open up, but the most successful voiceovers are often successful because they do what they do really, really well.
The Matt Berrys of the world.
Yeah, Matt is incredible. But I suppose that's very, very specific read. But I'm thinking more like, who is amazing and does little work? Somebody like Sean Dooley, who's with United Voices. Check out his stuff, he's amazing. He's the voice of SAS Who Dares Wins. And anytime there's a documentary and it's about something sort of stereotypically masculine, a prison, a submarine, the SAS, it's probably Sean Dooley. That's not the only thing he can do at all, but he's so good at that type of read. That is what he's been known for. If you're making a documentary about a children's zoo, it's unlikely you would book him. Now
that's when I come into play.
Yeah, exactly that. And you know what? He could do that stuff, but you're more likely to go elsewhere. So I think the casting opens up a bit, but the VOs that are working all the time tend to be working because they found their thing and they do it really, really well.
Yeah. I remember when I had my voice reel done and I was before going to it, I was a bit worried because I don't consider my sight reading to be the best. I've been working on it, but do you think, because I've got active friends who are dyslexic, and the idea of working on VO and doing the sight reading is very intimidating. What sort of advice would you give to those people?
Loads and loads of working VOs are dyslexic. So I really don't think it should put anybody off. I would say audiobook narration is, when you're starting out, is probably not an area you want to step into. But for video games, commercials, promos, probably even documentary, it's totally doable. You have to remember most commercials are 5 or 6 lines long. And again, it's a recorded medium. If you're reading an ad and you get 4 lines in and you stutter, you fluff, and you have to stop and pick up, doesn't matter, they just cut that out. So
Yeah.
it is totally accessible to anybody who's dyslexic. And actors I have represented before who are dyslexic find their way to make it work. I find they tend to work harder. And so often the people in the room wouldn't even know. What I think is really important is tell your agent, be really upfront with your agent, because what they will then do is they will push to get you scripts beforehand. That may only be 15 minutes beforehand, but that can make a massive difference. So make sure your agent's really aware, ask them to push for you. If they can't get a script beforehand, then again, when you get that script, you say, I just need a little moment to myself. And I think there's nothing wrong with saying I'm dyslexic. Lots of creative people are. And they often make bloody good voiceovers. So it shouldn't put anybody off. Find your way of making it work. Be open about it and be kind to yourself.
Well, people working with those type of disabilities as well might, they'll work twice as hard as the person that's going in
Absolutely.
a bit cocksure of themselves, and will therefore
100%.
the hard work
Yeah.
will overtake the talent in that regard.
Absolutely. So often, even when I do voice reels with actors who we talk about before, I'm dyslexic, that's fine, no worries, won't be a problem at all. Then we record, and I think I have not picked up on that at all. I did so much prep, and I think, well, bloody good on you, because it shows that level of preparation, that level of work, that level of listening, practicing, it really pays off. So I find actors who are dyslexic just tend to work harder and therefore smash it.
Yeah. So I remember when I did my recording, there was a time when we were listening to an advert back, and I wasn't quite getting the sort of vocal rhythm of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question really is on most adverts, is there a particular rhythm? Because I noticed that when I watch them now,
Yeah.
there is to be a flow that every single VO does.
Yeah, if you listen, of course there are exceptions to this, but if you listen to car ads, the new Ford Mondeo, the new Vauxhall Corsa, you will hear patterns in sounds, and it becomes familiar to the listener. We like hearing stuff that we know. It's comfortable, it doesn't shock us. Now, there may be certain ads where they try and do the total opposite of that. I think they call it just disruptive advertising, I think. But the majority, this week at Lidl, this week at Asda, this week at Morrison's, we want to hear a sound that we know. That's why the listening is so important. The more voiceovers you do, you can just read a script and know exactly where it should be placed. But if you're on a voiceover job and your inflections are slightly out, they'll just tell you. It'll be, sorry, Matt, we need a downward inflection here. Every little helps. It needs to go down. Okay, no problem. So again, do the work, put the work in, but it is not the end of the world if on the day you don't read it like that first time. They're there to help you. Of course, when you're working with voiceovers that have done 500 VOs in the past, they just know that stuff. But you'll get there. Everyone will get there.
I know, like a huge part of the work that you do with your voice reels is you choose the pieces, which is definitely a reason I initially inquired with real recordings, because I was always worried about they're going to ask me to pick everything beforehand and I'm going to pick the wrong thing and it's going to be a nightmare. How do you go about selecting pieces for people, and for the people that have chosen to go get those recordings where that doesn't happen, or just in general, what are your tips for people finding pieces for voice reels?
Firstly, I think you should always use companies that find material for you. I think it's really, really hard and a bit unfair to expect actors to do that themselves. I listen to masses of advertising, documentaries, audiobooks, podcasts. So I'm hearing patterns in, okay, this type of voice is heard a lot on this type of ad. Oh, okay, we're hearing loads of this type of sound on this commercial at the moment. So I'm aware of what the fashions are. I'm aware of what's popular. I'm aware of what would suit voices. Also, I was an agent, so casting is a massive part of being an agent. So casting a voice is a sort of involved in creating a voice reel. If you do have to find your own script, again, I would say listen to voices that are working that sound like you. That'll be a really good example of the sort of brands, the sort of jobs you could be booking. You know, if you know there's an actor that you sound like, what have they got on their voice reel? What brands are they endorsing? What sort of documentaries are they reading? But I think you should probably use a company that sources material for you. That's my advice. And that's not just because I do that, because there are lots of companies that do that, and I think that's the best way to work.
Yeah, I feel like it's a bit like, as you said, it's a bit misunderstood, VO, and if it's hard enough picking pieces if you're asked to bring a monologue for an audition or for a drama school audition, let alone an area of the industry you barely understand.
Exactly. Why would you know what your casting is? You'll know that a year into working. Matt, you'll be very aware now what sort of work you book, but you don't know that if you've never done it before. So someone who can help you with that's really important.
Do you mind us asking possibly why you moved on from being an agent and then set up your company? What was the process? What was the thinking behind that?
The thinking behind that was I wanted to start a family, and being a voiceover agent is absolutely wonderful and I loved it. But you work very, very long hours, and if your client wants to speak to you on a Sunday about their job on a Monday, you speak to them because that's what you should do. That's what a good agent would do. I wanted to work in a slightly different way. I just wanted to be in control of my time and my hours and not work evenings. And I knew I still wanted to work with actors, and I knew I still wanted to be involved in voiceover because I love it. And this seemed like a much more viable way of doing that.
Perfect. I think there's one. Oh, yes. Perfect. I just wanted to know, what is the process from getting a voice reel with real recordings from A to Z? If you could give us a sort of short run through of the entire process, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course I can. So you get in touch with me. It may take me a while to get back to you because I'm so busy, but I will eventually get back to you. Or sometimes I close my books for a little bit, so watch Twitter. I know other companies do that as well. They'll just shut their books for a while to focus on the people they've got booked in and then reopen them. Then we have a consultation, which is done over Zoom. Hooray for Zoom. And that's the important bit. That's when finding out what you want from your voice reel. Some actors really want to do audiobook. That's their main focus. That's important to know. Some actors, you really want to know exactly why do you want this voice reel. Then it's talking about where the actor comes from, where they grew up, where they trained, how old they are, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what their acting casting is, and what their acting playing age is. And also just having a good old chat, because the more you talk to somebody and you hear them just talking naturally, the better you understand their voice. You pick up on their rhythms, you pick up on their natural energy level. That's all really, really important. So sometimes it's just about getting people to just talk so I can listen to them. It doesn't matter what we're talking about at the moment. It's mainly COVID. How fun is that? But
we've gone and said the C word.
Sorry, yes, I said I wasn't going to say it.
We're doing so well, and we dropped the C bomb.
Mainly we talk about current affairs, but just getting someone to talk for a prolonged amount of time is a good way to hear their voice. Then that is what you can then go and pick scripts, source scripts. With audiobook extracts, I always ask actors to source their own, because I think with audiobook it's better if it's a book you connect with, you've read, the journey of the character, the journey of the story. There isn't Harry Potter. Look, no one can beat Stephen Fry. Let's never, ever read Harry Potter.
That won't stop everyone trying.
Oh, I know. And it's just, you're never ever going to
How
sound
many
good.
Hagrids have you heard, Fran? How many
No, I
Hagrids?
say no. I say no to it. I'm really, I sort of think if you're coming to me, you want honesty. So when someone tells me,
Shut up.
I really want to read this, I'm like, no, that's not right for you. Or there's a new Mercedes commercial I'd be great for. No, you wouldn't. That's part of it as well. It's about guiding people in the right direction. Otherwise, you end up with a voice reel that has a chocolate bar commercial, a charity ads. What else is always on there? One car, that's a really generic sort of paint by numbers voice reel, and that doesn't work for everybody. Also, that's not me slagging off chocolate ads, because more than one person has said, I've heard you shouldn't ever have chocolate commercials on a voice reel, which is so odd, and I don't know where that's come from.
Very specific.
Yes, but more than one person has said that. And I think what they mean is that new Galaxy Caramel, that
the sort of M&S type thing, isn't it?
That's a really specific type of read, and very few people can do that comfortably. So, yeah, but like a Kit Kat commercial, if it's a nice commercial, well, let's do it. God, I've totally gone off on a tangent, but yeah,
just got me craving chocolate.
Oh, no, I'm definitely going to eat chocolate after this. But yeah, that's it from start to finish. Discussion, listen to the voice, find out about their training, find out about where they're from, work out what they want from a voice reel, source the scripts, send them over to them, check they're happy, get into the studio, record. So much of it is then done when the actor leaves, because the engineer, you'll know this, Matt, engineers are magicians, and they are wonderful, and they are gorgeous men and women who are just so skilled, and whatever you do, they'll make you sound 10 times better.
It is that thing when you're told on a film set is to never, ever, ever piss off the crew, because they're the ones that make you look good. They're the ones that do all that work.
If you're in a job and the engineer is telling you something, the engineer is saying, I think we need a bit more voice, listen to them. They know how to make you sound good. The engineer is always your friend. So you record and we listen back and you think that sounds great, and then the engineer works their magic, and then you get your finished product. Once that's done, I talk about putting it up on Spotlight, how you should email out agents, what you should put in your email, how you should attach your clips. I've got a good list of agencies, how often you should be emailing them, all of that stuff.
Brilliant. Is there anything you'd like to ask Fran, Christian, before we let her go and actually be a mum rather than talk to us?
This is amazing. This is a break for me.
No, that's everything from me. So, Fran, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge.
So welcome. It's been lovely. It's been really lovely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our podcast.
We hope you enjoyed it and learned something.
We look forward to having you back in your room very, very soon.